Good morning. Welcome to EdTech Camp on Air. I am Hannah Wolfstadt, and in my session today, I will be sharing about using Google Slides to document in the kindergarten classroom. I'm a kindergarten teacher at John A. Lombardi Public School, and we've done a lot as a team in using Google Drive and Google Slides and Google Forms to document in the kindergarten classroom. So I will be joined by Kim in a few moments, Kim Polishak. She will be helping to monitor the chat, and we want you to engage with us in learning. So if you are on Twitter, please use the hashtag EdTechCampOnAir if you have any questions or comments. And if you are watching via YouTube Live, you can also have comments or questions there in the live chat. So if you are watching from the EdTech Camp on Air website and you want to access the chat, you will have to click the little box that says YouTube at the bottom of the video, and that will open a new tab with the YouTube link, and from there you will be able to access the chat. I was actually just watching Jill's YouTube live video, and so I noticed that the chat is on the right side of the page beside the video. So if you have any questions at all, please, or you need me to slow down, please post a message in the chat or on Twitter. And as well, if at any point in time during my slideshow you would like me to actually demonstrate how to do something in my own Google Drive, I will be sharing my screen with you, so you will have access to that. And just again, send a message. Kim will be monitoring and will let me know to slow down or to show something. Hope you're all in your PJs. I'm wearing my weekend shirt because it is the weekend. All right, so let's get started here. I'm just going to switch screens and broadcast this for us. All right. Perfect. All right, so using Google Slides for documentation in the kindergarten classroom. So I work at John A. Lombardi Public School with my amazing partner, Falguni Karya. So there's our class Twitter account at JLPSFDK_115. My email address, if you would like to contact me at any time, today, later on, please feel free. And my Twitter, I don't know if that will go, Twitter at Miss Wolfstadt. All right, and that's the bit.ly. If you are on the main page of YouTube, not on the EdTech Camp website, in the description, this bit.ly will be there. Otherwise, you can go to it now, and that will take you to this Google Slides presentation. All right, so pedagogical documentation using GAPS. This is just a quick little video made using Powtoon. Powtoon is actually a great website. You can create animated videos and presentations, great to use for PD. And older grades, students can use it to create videos or presentations. I was introduced to it in my Reading AQ this past summer. So we're just going to watch this video. Sorry, it's just taking a little bit long to load. There we go, it's starting. All right, almost there. All right, I think my sound is just muted. I'm going to turn it on. Whoops. All right. Oh, sorry. Okay, there is a little bit of music. I think we're just going to have to do without it. I'm sorry. I wanted to mute this other. There we go. So pedagogical documentation. This is just a quote directly from the kindergarten program about what pedagogical documentation is. So it's the process of gathering and analyzing evidence to make thinking and learning visible. And this is from Growing Success, the kindergarten addendum that came out 2 years ago now, I guess, in 2016. A key point to ensure is that documentation is done on an ongoing basis within the classroom. And something to keep in mind, pedagogical documentation differs from just plain observations, which is this old notes example over here, because neo-pedagogical documentation includes the thinking of the child and the educators. And I'm gonna go back for one moment. Just pause this for a second. If you want to learn a little bit more, this is taken directly from the kindergarten program document, specifically section 1.4, assessment and learning in kindergarten. So making thinking and learning visible. So this is an example of, an old type of observation, a note that would just say, Bradley was built a tower using floor blocks, and this is who he worked with. Whereas new documentation, pedagogical documentation, you're going more in depth. You're talking about, what you're seeing, what students are noticing. So definitely goes more in depth. So this is the purpose of using Google Slides. It also talks in this slide about Google Forms. So very similar for both of them. It's great because multiple educators can collaborate. Changes are automatically saved. Documentation is always accessible. It's easy to refer to and paperless. So I find, oh, sorry, I'm gonna pause that. Just go back again. So I find when I'm working on the communication of learning, which is the kindergarten report cards, and I've used my Google Slides and my Google Forms for small group. We're not going to touch on that today, but you can always contact me if you have more questions about that. I will sit there with MX Web open, which is, if you're not from the board, it's our report card portal to work on our report cards, and I have all of my different tabs for each individual student open, so I don't have to bring home my binders and all my papers. I just have my computer or my tablet right in front of me, and all of my information is there. And we're able to collaborate with educators. So when I get into showing you how we create folders and slides for our students, my partner and I have full access to everything for both of us to access at any point in time within the classroom. Continue this. And so this is just what you will need. So you need a Google account, which if you're in the board, you of course have one, a laptop or computer. If you have an iPad, a tablet, a smartphone, and you're going to be using that to document, you would want to download the following apps: Google Drive, Google Slides, Google Forms, Google Sheets, which is optional. That's more for forms, so we're actually not going to touch upon that today. And again, Google Docs is optional. So today we're just going to focus on these top two, Google Drive and Google Slides. Again, the Google Forms, Sheets, and Docs is more for if you're using forms, which we're not going to touch upon today. I find when I am documenting, I'm using my phone or my iPad in the classroom, but then it's rough notes, typing quickly, and I find I like to go back and work on my computer after to finalize, type any interpretations, which I'll show you and get into a little bit later. All right, so let's try it. Okay, so we're gonna go back up here. Okay, so sorry, I'm just gonna, whoops. There we go. Okay. So using Google Slides in the kindergarten classroom. So we use Google Slides in our classroom to document playful learning experiences. So while students are in play, we don't really use it so much for our small group. That's when we tend to use Google Forms, which again is a whole separate discussion. But we use it while they're in play. So we'll go sit with them and have our Google Slides template open and type the conversations that we're having with students or that we're overhearing. So it's easy to use on that laptop or handheld device. It's totally your preference which one you want to use. We just find it's easier within the classroom to walk around carrying an iPhone or an iPad versus a tablet. But in the kindergarten classroom, we all have access to Chromebook now, which is wonderful. So that's easy enough to carry around if you would like to take that with you. And each student has their own Google Slides presentation document or their own file. So that's what I'm going to teach you how to do. So this is an example of our template that we're using this year. Keep in mind, this is just one example. You can create any template that works for you and for your students. Last year, I can show you an example of ours from last year. We had a totally different template, and this year, my partner and I, at the end of the year, the end of last year and at the beginning of this year, we sat down together and said, okay, we want to update it. What did we like last year? What do we want more of? And we customized a template that worked well for us. So this is a template. It may look daunting, but just take a breath. This is what works for us. So it does not need to be this intense at all. It could be more, have more categories, whatever works for you. In the handout that is linked to the slides presentation, you'll be able to see how to set this up. So personally, we have a section for the frame. So we have the 4 frames listed just with the acronyms. And when we document, we highlight which frame the documentation falls under. So is it belonging and contributing, demonstrating literacy and math, self-reg, or problem solving and innovating? And then we highlight what type of learning is it. Is it the key learning or growth in learning? We didn't put next steps here because that's what we would add in this interpretation box over here. Then we click the date. So simply put the date in, the educator. So whether it's myself or my partner, or if you have a prep teacher coming in and you've given them access to the slides, which is a great way to collaborate. Just so you know which educator it is, you write the name there. And then picture. This is optional. You don't have to have it, and sometimes we don't, and we just write in the box in capital letters, none, just so we don't forget that we don't think that we haven't added a picture in. We know that there's not going to be a picture. And again, I'll get into how to upload a picture into here. Here in the observation summary is where we type our observation. So this can be very messy. Like I find when I'm sitting there, I'm just typing away as much as I can. And it takes a little bit of time, but I'll go back after and fix it up and make it nicer and neater so that it's clear. I'm able to understand what I meant. And this is, it's very rough at the beginning. I'll sit there with my iPad and just type away with what I'm hearing. And it does take time, like I said, but going back after to edit it. This is the interpretation, and this is huge. And I find if you practice and can quote unquote get good at this part, it makes your communication of learning time a lot easier. So this is where I will interpret what we saw. So this observation summary is just what you've seen and what you've heard, which is part of that pedagogical documentation process. Whereas the interpretation is, okay, like what does this all mean? So I saw them putting, a red block and then a blue block and a red block and a blue block. Well, in my interpretation, I will interpret that the student is making or creating or extending a pattern. And then I also put the next steps here. And this could be next steps for the student, so what the student needs to work on, or for educators. So it could be student A is able to make a simple AB pattern. The next step is to introduce them to an ABC pattern. And I find if I can put it in clear language, that sometimes I'm able to copy what I've put in this interpretation directly into the communication of learning. So it's almost like throughout the year, I'm creating that communication of learning, and it's just a matter of copying and pasting into the MX Web box, which is a huge time saver communication of learning time. And this is the expectation. So here we just list the overall. That's how my partner and I do it. We just will put OE1. It has to do with overall expectation 1. You can feel free to put specific expectations if that's going to help you. Again, totally up to you. So this is our template. Later on, we'll get into how to create this. So this is an example, one from our class at the beginning of the year. So this is the filled in template. So as you can see, this was problem solving and innovating. And you can highlight more than one frame because we know that often the frames or the documentation can coincide. In this case, I just highlighted PSI, but you can highlight more than one for sure. And we'll talk about later how to categorize it. This was key learning. I've put the date, the educator was myself, and here's a picture. So again, you can see here, this looks somewhat detailed, the observation summary. This is not what it looked like when I left school on Monday, September 18th, or at the end of this playful learning time. I had to go back and make this neat with my quotation marks and my commas. But in the moment, I was just trying to type this part here that looks like the conversation. So I've typed on Friday, R and A were looking through the book Dreaming Up and wanted to make a fort or tent. And so that was Friday. And now on Monday, R decided to make it on his own. So this is the conversation that I had with the student. And you can see, again, I just typed in directly what the comment was. And after is when I put these part in brackets and went into a little bit more detail. So R said, I need one more chair. How am I going to make the roof? And he figured out on his own. This blanket was, I think, just kind of off to the side. We had used it for something else. So he figured out how to use it. The blanket that Miss Korea, my partner, had given to, oh, that was it. Miss Korea had given it to R and Andrew earlier. So I said, well, what do you need me to do? And R said, to help. And I said, how do you want me to help? He said, to put everything on. So he did a little bit more work. And later on, he said, this is not right. Why is it not right? And on his own, he figured out, because I need this. So he pointed to something in the book. It was kind of like a black background. And to him, that was him noticing that he needed more chairs. And then later on, this part about it's for 2 people, he was saying, we were having a conversation. He said, it's for 2 people. And I said, can 3 people fit? And he said, no, because it's too squishy. So he hung out in the tent with another friend. They were lying down. But it was interesting to me that they kept complaining that it was too squishy and that the student I was on top of him, was too close to him. So here's when I get to the interpretation, which I find is the most important. And I use part of this. So this was done in September. I used part of this documentation directly in his initial observation, in his progress report, Communication of Learning, in November. So he independently selected to design and build a fort in the classroom. He was inspired by the pictures he saw in a book at the building center. R was able to decide on his own which materials he needed. He sometimes needed a bit of prompting to select the materials and move forward, but he was fairly independent. And he was mostly able to communicate when he needed something. So this was, for this student, huge, because he came into our classroom last year. This year he's year 2, but last year he came in year 1 and he spoke no English. So the fact that he was able to communicate is huge for this student. And even though he was able to communicate, we're still working on communicating even a little bit clearer. So telling the teacher right away what he needs help with so that I can best help him in the best way possible. So I know this sounds a little bit wordy, but that's why it does take a little bit more time, and I work on making it as clear as possible so that I can just copy it right into the Communication of Learning. And then these are the expectations. So again, I've just simply listed the overall expectations. And I'll show you, when I show you an example of one of our slides later, an easy way to find this template, to find the overall expectations. So now it is time for you to begin creating your documentation templates. So we're going to click, I have this open in another tab, this handout, which gives you a step-by-step guide in how to create a slides template. And most importantly, have fun. So before I get to that, just one thing for you to keep in mind. The DLRT team has created a website for technology enhanced assessment in kindergarten. So it's a wonderful site, which we did get some of our ideas in creating the template we're using this year from this website. So I'm just going to click on it to show you. So this is the website for kindergarten. Technology Enhanced Assessment in Kindergarten. And here's the bit.ly for it if maybe you want to bookmark it or save it. So over here, these links are the same as the ones on the left side. And it takes you to different types of assessment tools. So learning portfolios, for frames learning portfolios, class module, using Google Forms, which again, I said is something we do in our class, but that's for another day. Analyzing student learning using Google Forms, and student documented learning. So we did get some of our ideas from our template this year from this website. So this is just something for you to keep in mind. I'm just going to exit it for now, but you always have access to it through my presentation. So this is that handout that I was talking about. And I think I'm going to try and just tab resize. That might help us out a little bit. Thank you, Kim, for teaching me this in the summer. Oh, but you can only see. Okay, I don't know if it's going to work right now. just the way the Google Hangouts is. Okay, that's okay. We'll go back to the tabs. So in order to create a basic Google Slides, you are going to start in your My Drive page by creating a new folder. And this is where you're going to house all of the documentation for your class. So you can create the folder and choose any name that you want that works for you. It could be student portfolios, playful learning, documentation, whatever works for you. I'm going to show you ours over here. Sorry, it took a second to load. We have a folder within a folder within a folder. So we have a folder called documentation for my partner and I. So once you've created that folder, you are then going to go into the folder and click the blue new box. Now you're going to actually create your Google slide, your main template. So this is what our blank one is, and we keep this blank one. We always title it Blank Playful Learning. We never get rid of this. We never change it. Because if we get a new student, which we have, we've gotten 3 new students this year so far, we're going to want to make a copy of this for our new students, which I will get to in a little bit. So once you have made this presentation, you're going to rename it to whatever you like. So for example, we like to have it as Blank Playful Learning. You might want Blank Documentation Template, whatever works for you. And then you're going to make the template. So like we have this template. You're going to make whatever template works for you. Just give me one moment. I'm just going to open something up over here. So you're going to make whatever template. And we are going to get into how to create these little text boxes. So you're going to create a blank documentation template. So you can add text boxes or tables, and we're going to get to that in step 5. We're just going to skip to back to step 4. You want to make a blank copy of this so that there's one presentation for each student. So if you look into my Playful Learning documentation, we have each student in the class has a folder. We have chosen to color code it based on year 1 and year 2. We've just chosen whatever color works for us. There is no right or wrong. And within each folder, the student has their blank slides. You're going to want to make, once you have your blank template, a slide, a copy of the slide for each student in your class. Okay, so that's when we go to step 5. We're going to create the template. So you're going to then want to rename each slide presentation with your student's name. So as you can see here, it's Athira Playful Learning. And if we look at a year 2 student, they have 2. They have 2, which means year 2, Alexander Playful Learning, and the one from last year. We wanted to have 2 separate slide presentations for a variety of reasons. One is that we changed our template from year 1, from last year to this year. We have a new template now. And as well, it's just easy that we know, okay, we're focusing on this year. We don't just scroll through all of last year's documentation in order to find the piece of documentation we're looking at right now. So that's why we like to have 2 separate presentations. If you want to keep year 1 and year 2 in the same, that's totally up to you. That's okay as well. So now we're going to get into how do we create this template. So I'm just going to, in the purposes of this, create it in here, a new slide, a blank one, and show you how to create all the different the template. So I'm gonna delete this for now, just to show you. Give me 1 second. Okay, so I'm not gonna have the slides handout open right now, so if you could wanna have it open another tab or print it out at a later time, I'm just gonna focus on this right now. So to add text, you want to create a text box for starters. So you're going to click Insert at the top here and Text Box. And you can then put it wherever you want. So if you wanted to create something similar to what we had, where you have the frames at the top, you create your text box, just like that. And you can size it however you want. You can make it as big as the page, you can make it smaller, whatever works for you. You could also insert a table if you would like. It's your choice, whatever, if you want a table or you want a text box. It does not make so much of a difference. So you are then going to type within the box, whatever you want. So if you wanted to do frame, you will type the frame. And then type the different frames from the document. Oh, that's not supposed to say, that's supposed to say BC. Self-regulation, well-being, and PSI. And you create as many text boxes as you would like. You can do this on a smartphone or an iPad. And what you would do is there's a little plus button and you would click that select text. I find it's easier if you're creating your template to be doing it on a computer versus a tablet for the first time. Definitely document on the tablet, but I find it's easier to create using the computer. But again, it's your own preference. You can move, delete, resize the boxes as you wish. So let's say you make another box that says observations, observations, but you decide, okay, I want this to be moved, the frame box, I now want it at the bottom, and I want the observations at the top right. You can move it around as you like. As I showed before, you can resize it however you would like. You might notice that there's no box around it. Right? The frame doesn't have a box around it. So in order to fix that, you would click on the box, and up here in this little toolbar at the top here, you would click on the border weight. So you would click on that and choose how big you want it. You could have it size 1. Should move that up a little. You could have it as size 4. You can see it makes it a little bit thicker. You could color code it. You could choose the border color. Maybe you want to have it a funky blue color, however you would like. So you can make that text box as however you like. I know right now it's kind of in the middle of the page, but I'm just doing it to show you the different effects. So once you've added all of your text box and created it however you like the template, you can also add images, shapes, and more. So if you click Insert at the top here, you can upload an image directly from your computer or from your drive. You can also add a shape. You can add slide numbers. So maybe you want to number your slides. That might help you. Or any of these other features. Again, if you're using your smartphone or your tablet to create this, you would click that little plus button and select the image. So I find if I'm using my tablet to document, and I'm going to just go back up here for a second. In my picture, I want to actually insert a picture of the students. This is when I would click that little plus button and insert an image from the iPad, either from the camera, so I will take it right then and there, or maybe I took a picture at an earlier date and now I want to put it in. And again, if you add a picture in, you can resize it, you can change it, or you can delete it if you decide you don't want it. Whatever works best for you. I am just going to slide down or go back over to the slides handout and scroll down a little bit. So when you are making those text boxes, maybe for the frame, for observations, these are some of the basic headings that you may want to include. So again, this is totally up to you and whatever works for your class and for your partnership. So I can show you an example of ours from last year. Pulling this up over here. I'm going to just scroll down to a blank slide template, which I will talk about that in a moment. That it's really important to always have a blank slide. So as you can see here, this was our slide template from last year. It was a lot simpler. We had an area for 2 pieces of documentation on one slide. So we simply had the date, the picture, a spot for picture, the expectations or the big idea, the observations, and the next step. We didn't have a spot for the frame. We didn't have a spot for the educator. We didn't have a spot for if it was key or growth in learning. So we changed it up from last year. We also actually, didn't have a spot for interpretations. So this was last year's. Again, as you can see, we have updated it for what we have this year. We have a more comprehensive template this year. So going back to the slides handout, over here are some basic headings that you may want to include, and it's totally up to you. Date, I would say you would for sure want, because you want to know when it happened, especially if come communication of learning time, you're looking at key learning versus growth in learning. You can have a spot for the educator, which, as you saw, we didn't have last year. It's totally up to you. You know, if you don't have a DECE with you, maybe you only have a class of 14 or 15 students, this may be irrelevant because you're the only educator. Frame, so which of the 4 frames does the document fall under, which is a category that we have. Again, not necessary if you don't need it. The type of learning, so is it key or growth learning? Again, not mandatory, totally up to you. Expectations, I would say this is a little bit more of a mandatory one, just because you want to be able to see which expectations are covered, how does it directly tie back to the curriculum and to the communication of learning when it comes time for that. Observation, so this is one thing you will want for sure. So this is, as I mentioned earlier, what you see and hear students doing. So this is purely observational. You want to try not to make judgments. It's hard, but that's something that, you know, I've really tried to learn with the whole pedagogical documentation process. You want to try not to have any interpretations at this time. And that's when your interpretation part will come in. You may choose to have just one box where you do observations and interpretations together. Again, it's totally up to you. If you have them separate, your observations would be, you know, what you see and what you hear. And then the interpretation is, well, you sit down and think, okay, what does this mean? You know, what is the student showing or demonstrating? What do they know? What can they do? That's what you would do in the interpretation. And then next steps, again, it could be a separate one or it could be part of interpretation. And as I mentioned earlier, it could be next steps for the student as well as for the educators, which is really important to keep in mind. And finally, the picture. And this is an optional place. You may choose to include a picture. You may not. Totally up to you. So once you have created your blank document, just a few general notes. It is helpful within your general documentation folder to create folders for each student. So as I showed you over here, I'm just going to go back to Playful Learning. I don't just have the slides presentation for each student here. Each student has a folder. And the reason we do that is that sometimes you may be working and you might not have a chance to maybe upload a picture into the slides document yet, but you may want to have it in that student's folder so that you can access it at a later date. For example, this picture. Or you may have a video. Unfortunately, you can't embed a video into a Google Slides, but you can then put the video in the folder. And I'm just trying to remember, I know a couple students I have a video of. Trying to think who it is. But I have a video in their folder. Just bear with me a moment. I'm trying to, okay, I know one student for sure is this one. She has a video right in here. So I can't embed this video into her doc, but I have it in her folder. So within her doc, I can, where it says picture, I might want to say, see video in Sloan's folder, and I will then date the video in the folder, which I haven't done here. But I know then I can come back and look at the video in order to see what the student has done. So that's just this note over here. And as I mentioned, you can't add a video to a slide, so you would just include it in the folder, which is that next bullet point. And as I mentioned earlier, I was going to come back to this. Within each child's slide deck, you always want to keep at least one blank slide. So as you can see here in Alexander's, he has these blank slides. He always is going to have at least one of these. And that's because if he doesn't have any, then I'm not going to have a blank slide to work off of if I have a new piece of documentation for him. So we want to always have this blank slide, at least one of them, so that come time to do a new piece of documentation, it's ready to go. And in order to duplicate, so let's say I only had one of these left, you can right click on it to click duplicate the slide. And there you go. I have now made another slide, exactly the same. Another way to do is to click on the slide. I think that's the way up. Nope, sorry, I thought there was one. Yeah, sorry, slide, duplicate slide. So again, one more slide is going to pop up, okay? And that's what I was mentioning earlier in his old documentation from last year. So in addition to always having this blank template that never gets touched, you also want to have a blank slide, the original within each student's documentation presentation. So one other thing that we have done this year, or two other things, as I mentioned, we have this chart as the first slide in every student's presentation. And this is the overall expectations. I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly who created this. I know I found it on Twitter last year when the new document came up. And this lists all the expectations, overall expectations for each frame. And you can see some of them overlap. Overall expectation 1 is in all of the frames. And this just helps, if I'm doing my documentation, I can't think of which expectation it falls under for that student. I can come and check out this slide and say, oh, okay, it was OE22, and go type that into the expectations box. So this is good. We just have it as the first slide for all students' presentation. And this is just simply a picture that I have uploaded. I clicked insert image and I uploaded it. I can't remember now if I uploaded it from my computer or the drive, but it was just simply a picture. And Kim just messaged me that, yes, if you want to add a blank slide or duplicate a slide, sorry, you can click on the slide and then click Command D, and that will duplicate the slide as well. So that's on your keyboard. If you're using a Chromebook, it's Control and D on your Chromebook. Thank you for that, Cam. So sorry, that is always the first slide. And then what we've added, something new, and this is an idea we got from that DLRT Technology Enhanced Kindergarten website. We have these little headers for the 4 frames, color-coded according to what they are in the curriculum document. So we have one for belonging and contributing, one for self-reg and well-being, one for demonstrating literacy and math behaviors, and one for problem solving and innovating. So in addition to at the top here, selecting which frame it's in, highlighting here, we also, once we finish our documentation, drag it down to wherever we want. So let's say, I'm gonna just go into Alexander's as an example. We have a piece of documentation on Alexander about belonging and contributing. Once we have finished creating or completing the documentation, this originally had been up here somewhere, and I simply just clicked it and dragged it down here. You can see that this also has to do with self-reg and well-being, but I've chosen one category to put it into. I know by looking at this that it's also self-reg and well-being, but I've chosen to put it in belonging and contributing. You can put it in both. You can duplicate the completed slide and put it in both, but my partner and I decided that for simplicity, we are just going to choose one frame to put it under. And so then it's really easy come communication of learning time for you to come and say, okay, I'm on the frame, the box about problem solving and innovating. I'm going to go here, and I'm going to take the documentation straight from here because it pertains directly to that frame. Sorry, I'm just going to check we have something. Tracy, thank you, Tracy. Hi, Tracy. You can add videos on Google Slides when using a laptop rather than, you can add videos on Google Slides when using a laptop rather than an iPad. I've added videos of our students to their portfolio after it's uploaded. Sorry, so Tracy, I think, is actually saying that we can add videos of our students to their portfolio after it is uploaded to add to a slide. So let's try that. I did not know that. Sorry, I'm going to go to Sloan's. This actually wasn't a video of Sloan from class. This was a piano recital her mom sent it to us to share.
Hey.
Hi.
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 I think Tracy's saying that now we have the ability to upload videos, or so to embed videos in a Google Slide if the video is in our Google Drive.
Oh, like we can put a link.
No, you can actually embed them just like YouTube videos now. Now, if you have a video in your Google Drive, you can actually embed them in a slide right now.
Okay, so I'm going to try that with Sloan. Sorry, it's just taking a second to load here. Thank you, Kim. Okay, so I want to put it here. I'm going to insert. So just insert, insert video. Sorry, it's taking a little bit long today. Okay, so you can put the URL to a direct YouTube video, or you can go to Google Drive. So if I go to Google Drive, well, we went to Active Kids Zone, part of winter elective. So let's just pretend I wanted to upload this video. I'm just gonna click this one because it's the one on top, quickest one, don't have to search for another one. Wonderful, thanks Tracy. I didn't know that. That's great, so now we can do that. And then again, I'll show you how to resize it. So I want it to fit in that picture box. So I can move it around as needed. I'm gonna size it down and fit it into that box. Wonderful, that is awesome. Okay, so there you guys go. You learned something new. I got to update that handout now. And there you go. So it might seem like a lot at first, and the template may seem daunting, but you have to do what works best for you, whether you want just, a spot for the date and the picture and the observations and the interpretation and expectations. You may not want to have this stuff at the top here. It's totally whatever works for you. I know that Gail is going to be talking about how she uses slides later on in the day. I'm not 100% sure what time. I think it's later on, maybe around 2 or 3 in the afternoon. So she's going to share another way that she uses to document, again, using slides, but a different format. So you have to do what works best for you. We find that it's just easy. We pull out our iPad and we can type away. Gail is at 3:15. Thank you, Kim. And this is what works well for our class. So again, main things to keep in mind, you always want to have this blank template, and you always want to have a blank template slide within each Google slide for each child. I think that is about it for now. If you have any other questions, please feel free to email me at any time now, a year from now, 3 weeks from now, post on Twitter as well. And that's it for now. So I hope, I'm just going to switch back over here. I hope you learned a lot. I hope you were comfy in your pajamas and drinking your tea or coffee, having a snack. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you learned a lot, and good luck. Happy documenting. Enjoy the rest of the day. Hope you're going to attend some more sessions. Thank you, Kim, and thank you, Tracy, for sharing some knowledge with us. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks for having me.